Show that you are excited. Thank you. We're gonna be joined by Austin Tlantla and Wandisile and Avuti Wandile.
Okay, okay, one day.
Kana kana varile ka 80 le swantse re lebe presentable or representable.
Hello, hello.
Hi everyone. Hello. Ndima Siari. Ti? Ndima Siari, yeah. Dumelang Sanbonani. Igama uNonhlanhla wakamnisi. I'll try and run this one very quickly, and then Andile will come. And I thought to myself, you guys have probably been having so much information overload, and maybe we will start. Nah, it's cool. I'm running away from the VIP session that the section that they're trying to drag me to. Maybe before we start, let's just get the feeling of the house as to what are people currently watching. So what shows are you currently watching? Maybe it's gonna be a very interactive session. Squid Games. Either way. Yeah. The Good Doctor, The Wife, Modern Family. Continue. Blacklist Sisters, I hear. Ah, the first local one. Linga Shoni. The Wife is local. Oh, Shomu. Ah, yes. Okay, I haven't watched it. You see now. Yeah. Cool, cool. So, Gomorrah fans. Do you have Gomorrah fans in the house? Very biased. Upel is biased. Maybe just giving a bit of my background. If you can go to the next slide, please. Just to give everyone an idea, and this will also speak to the fact that regardless of your background, your academic background, you can get into the world of scripting. I, for one, came from a finance background, and I switched careers in 2013, and I then started off, freelancing. And I don't want to see myself. Oh, they said they're live. Yes, yes. I was like, oh, it's so awkward when you see yourself on screen. So I started off, you know, two. Why ngenzela moods? Yeah, on. So yeah, so that is my background in a bit. At the moment, I'm with Mnet, commissioning editing for SADC region. So we work with Botswana. Here, there's quite a lot of Botswana fans in the house. Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Namibia, those regions. That's the content that we're currently commissioning. And yeah, that is the long and short of it. Are there any people who are part of the Writers Guild? Speaking to the writers. Awesome, awesome. Do we have writers in the room, by the way? Many of them. Is it? What are you guys currently writing? What's on your desk? What are your proposals that are you working on? Are you working on a film? Are you working on a TV series? Reality, entertainment? What are you busy with? Films. Okay, we've got a lot of series. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Are you guys not writing? Okay, cool. Awesome. And what genre are you writing for? Drama, drama. Thriller. Love it. Rom-com. Awesome stuff. We will move on. I wish I had got his name, so I discover the guy. A bit of background, obviously, before I joined the film and TV space, I was in advertising. So I was a TV producer for the agency called Ogilvy. Spent some time doing ads for some of these companies here. Probably, Millicent, probably one deal has worked with Ogilvy, probably, definitely. We've got some creatives in the house. Awesome. Let's get moving. In terms of the film, so I moved straight from Ogilvy and I joined Isibaya. That was probably season 5. Before the Mkuku was burning. Pel, before. It was before. As before the Mkuku was burning. So background in screenwriting, and once again, I want you to remember that I had not studied for these things. What I did do with the Writers Guild was the basics of screenwriting. You'll be surprised at what you can get with those things. So meaning that if you are here and you're saying to yourself, what do I need to go do? The film degree and a whole lot of those things, of course you probably do, but that doesn't stop you from studying from where you are. Okay, after Isibaya, joined Cheddar Pictures. Just keep moving. I'll talk quite quickly on these ones. Started off with The River, and I was trained there as well by Abu Patu. Moved on to Gomorrah. Started with the Gomorrah 2019, right at the inception phases, all the way to some of the shows that which one has gotten to do. Just keep scrolling. Thank you. Yes, keep moving. Some of the reality shows, so scripted and unscripted content. We'll talk to those guys and yeah. Keep moving. I'm just wary of time here. The next one, short films as well. The next one, that's it. It starts there. It starts with the story. Oh, I've got some Shonda Rhimes fan in the house. I love it. So I love what she says here, Shonda Rhimes, to say that in a world of unlimited voices and choices, those who can bring people together and tell a good story have the power. And if you think about it, for some of us who grew up with grandmothers and they'll be telling us stories and all that, and it would just be intriguing. Say, okay, what happens next? You know, what happens next? And you think about it, creativity has always been there. It's just that it wasn't packaged, right? And throughout this weekend, you're gonna learn how to develop and even get it to packaging your concepts, because there are stories out there that are yet to be told, in a way. So when you think of TV, can jump on to the next one. I want you to think of your favorite shows, right? These are some of my favorite shows. So you love Revenge. That was good. And what was nice with Revenge is they knew when to call it quits, right? They didn't drag the storyline in a way. And Prison Break. So you think of Days. Days is not necessarily my favorite show, but what I want to say about Days was if you think of what made you to keep coming back, because at some point we are all prisoners of days of our lives, right? In the bold and the beautiful, for so many reasons. And of course, one of them is the fact that we didn't have much options, right? We're just stuck with Brooke crying all the time. And we always joke that Brooke can never act anyway after that role, right? Catherine is just, that's it for her career. So you think of a whole lot of those things to say, what are your, because it starts there, guys. Many a times when we're trying to develop stories, we want to tell stuff that which we wouldn't watch. And the idea is for us to say, whatever that we are developing, we want to make sure that it is stuff that which we can also sit at home, enjoy, and love, right? Although there's quite a fine line, particularly in SA, because now what you also want to try and do is to ensure that whatever story that you are bringing forth, that it relates to the audience that which you are trying to reach, right? We did get a pitch that was similar to a revenge story, and the big ask was to say, is it talking to the audience? Is this something that our people would do in a way? Can jump on to the next one. Many a times what we say with stories is you need to find the hook. You think of Isibaya, it was the Taxi World. You think of Squid Game, you think of Money Heist, you think of, there was Clickbait that I've watched recently. You know, that hook that makes you find yourself binging on something. And what happens with many stories that we lose it, particularly with the long formats, when we move away from the hook, right? When it's no longer about, you know, the premise of the actual show. You know, many a times we tend to, you know, play around and we slightly move out of that. Now, I've already mentioned that a concept has to be relatable. You look at stuff like Scandal, right? No, and I was quite inspired, Shonda Rhimes fan here in the house, that how that concept came about was Shonda Rhimes was going into a meeting that Betsy Beers had set for 20 minutes. So it's like I'm giving this girl, Judy Smith, 20 minutes of my time to pitch her story. And in 20 minutes, Judy hooked Shonda Rhimes to a point that the meeting lasted for 3 hours. And before you know it, we've got Scandal on TV. Now, another thing that we fail to understand is that some of these award-winning shows, they're normally based on true stories. There's a sense of reality. Prison Break, you know, it happened, you know. So when the more, and if you look at Scandal and how it ended, it was quite washed down, well, in my view, right? We were like, it's okay. But when it started, because the hook was there, and the story was there, we're all, you know, glued to our screens in a way. The River, when it was first pitched, it was supposed to be a 13-part series. And today you have a long format for The River. It's those little things to say that sometimes when you pitch these things, you can never know your story. So you don't want to limit yourself. Sometimes some of these ideas can make for a long format in a way. We move on. Every producer is looking for the catalyst to say, what is your log line? Probably a word that you'll hear over and over and over again, but it is quite important for us to define the log line. You watch movies like, there's this one, I think it's Queen Latifah, where she's told, Holiday something, where she's told with a guy by right. What's that? Holiday, forgot. But she's, last holiday, yes, thank you, we've got movie watchers in the room. So in that film, she's told that, you know, she's gonna die of cancer, I think in 3 months or 4 months, whatever, but that then becomes your premise, right? Many a times, and I forgot to say that, you know, speaking of Last Holiday, that sometimes, yes, in films, the title does sell, and I think I probably will touch later on it, but more so you wanna make sure that in films that it explains particularly the plight of your hero, that which you're about to journey with. So you think of that, you think of Jason Statham's movies where, you know, he's told that, hey, your brother has been kidnapped or whatever, you know, and that's what we call a call to adventure, and, you know, then the hero goes on to an adventure. So writing is just mathematics. You just need to understand and fit in all these things because it's just a format. It's just, you need to understand the mathematics of it. The log line being a very part of it. And I like that joke there that says, you know, you're a writer when the word synopsis can make you cry like a baby. many a times it's easier for people to just say, just give me a synopsis, you know, and they don't understand how hard that thing is to try and put together. Your story will then need to have 3 acts. Many a times you find that we can know the introduction of the story and how it's going to go, but you find that we don't have a crisis, we don't have a climax. So you want to make sure that once again it goes back. And as I'm talking, I'm actually reminded that I do have some ebooks for those who are in writing and who want to learn more. I am a self-taught writer. So I do have some self-help material that can help people in the house, like the book titled Story by Robert McKee. There's another one titled Save the Cat by Blade Snyder. It's such an awesome book. Yeah, quite a couple of those. So I'm happy to share because that's where you actually get, you know, to ensure that when you are writing, you are fitting in these things, you are answering these. The premise, obviously, it has to be logical. It has to be universal. And of course, the genre. I was asking about the genre. You mentioned rom-com, you know, that's an audience. You know, someone you mentioned thriller, you know, that's your, so it's when you also understand it. It's another topic that can take the entire day, but you definitely need to make sure that you understand your genre and you define it as early as possible. We can jump on to the next one. You need to know the world of your story, because if you don't know it, the audience won't know it, will just then be confused, you know, and hence saying here that you need to do your research. You need to think of everything. You need to take your movie, and I think probably if you've put it together, you know, just play around the genres. I'm like, what if I were to turn my rom-com to horror, right? And you land with something else. You'll be very shocked, right? But when you do all those, it's an exercise that which you probably have to try and ensure that you play around. You know, the reality of it all. You know, what are you saying? You know, and you say that stories are often the opposites. That's why sometimes you've got a criminal who will fall in love with, a cop, right? Or, you know, you can have a priest that can, are you thinking of power? You know what I mean? So it's always interesting when you have that in your thingy. And of course your conflict, we don't have a story if there's no conflict, otherwise we end on the first scene. Right? So always want to make sure that our stories, we're always constantly looking to raise your stakes high. Ask yourself a question with each and every character that you have, particularly your main or your lead, that are they being chased whilst they're chasing the dream that they're chasing? What is chasing them? Because that's what ups the stakes. You know what I mean? So if there's nothing that is chasing these people, then it's quite dull, because you don't really have conflict in a way. Okay, so I thought of that movie, The Revenant, to say that imagine if it was shot elsewhere. You know, the location of where that movie was shot. You know, it's one character. It could have easily been boring, but because of the location, it made us, you know, to be hooked onto our screens. Once you have your log lines and everything, if you find your world, you jump into the character Bible. If you can jump to the next one for me. Of course, your character Bible needs to speak to all these people that makes up a story. You need your protagonist, your hero. You need your antagonist, the person who's trying to, stop or hinder the hero from reaching their goal. You know, your love interest. Many a times you definitely need, Prison Break, you had Sarah and Michael, and Sarah's career was saved by Twitter because she was meant to die at the end of the first season. So if you've read, so because of the performance and everything that has happened, then they were like, no, we gotta bring her back in a way. It's always good to read the critics, particularly for shows that we like, so that we know what's missing, what worked, what didn't work. You need a mentor, a teacher. It's a character that will always die at some point in the story, Many a times it's that person, in action movies, your Jet Li's and Jackie Chan's, you'll have that trainer, it's either they'll go away or something in revenge, that guy, he went away, so that the hero can take the journey on their own all the way. And then that's what makes them the hero, that yes, they had the help, but they first had to, go through stuff before they got to where they got to, in a way. I was laughing because much as there are so many stories that came out, but people still associate Connie Ferguson as Garabo. They still say Melusion Gomora is Jason, and Katlego will always be Dineo. So it's like crazy, right? But I think it's because of the characters. I mean, I can never forget Uchirali on Mzinwezi Nsizwa. You know what I mean? Because of the dynamics of those characters that which were built around. We can move on. We then get to the story arcs. Your stories need to have what we call turning points. Otherwise, we don't have a story. You want to make sure that your treatment, you want to make sure that your beat sheet, so your beat sheet, it's turning. So that's why many times when you watch shows, Millicent will tell you that they start off, maybe they can start off smiling with the mother and all that. Hey, by the time the scene ends, they're now at each other's throat. They're like, what happened? So that's a scene needs to turn. So when you are pitching and you are writing these documents, you want to make sure that you give us that in a way. And the character twist, I mean, we've seen it with Angela on Power. Love, love, love the performance. We've seen it with Raquel. We've seen it with quite a number of people. I've touched on the acts already. If you can jump on to the next one. For the filmmakers, your script, most of us didn't know this when we started, that sometimes producers don't go beyond 10 pages when they're reading our things. The next slide. They literally browse through, and that's why you need to sell them in the first 10 pages, in a way. And remember that, particularly for script writers, and when you are writing the script, that it is a document that will be your voice when you're not in the room. So you want to make sure that, particularly even with the hands that it's going to be passing through, that they understand. Wardrobe needs to understand what's happening. The director needs to understand. So you want to make sure that you are as articulate as possible. I was laughing the other time where I used to attend directing workshops by Mr. Ate Uga. And one of the things he said was, script writers will just write on Titanic probably that the ship sinks. That's it. But it's the job of the director to now make sure that, that is brought to life. To say that sometimes writers, we don't make their work, easier because we just don't go into details and all those sort of things. So you want to make sure that you go into details and you paint the world. Wardrobe is quite important. Forever fascinated by Game of Thrones. A lot of money put into that, but that's what speaks to. Sometimes your show can literally be sold just by wardrobe. People will be like, "Whoa, we want that show." It's crazy, but it's these little things. Can move on. Music as well. I'm not sure, some of you may have heard when Proud Mary, the movie by Taraji, came out, there were rumors that, oh no, what's the name of the artist, Tina Turner, actually was not aware that they're using the song. So please stay away from those things. Make sure that you've cleared your rights and you know your rights. I know of one guy, Zetuma Shiga, who's literally doing music for so many shows in SA. So to the music makers in the house as well, try and jump into those things. There are so many ways to try and expand your horizons in film, outside writing. Budget. Yeah. Budget will always be tight. I was just thinking out loud to say, I've never met a producer who said, oh no, we had good budget to make this. And yet we've got stories today like Squid Game, when they only had like 21.4 million, and they were able to turn that into 900 million. To say that sometimes, and you have shows that have been long running, like 24, that had, and I'm sorry, but you guys are watching all these shows anyway. I'm not using Amashows like I. 24 about Lonjana, you'd find that they've got like 4 million just to shoot an episode. So these guys didn't quite have much of a budget, and yet they had a story that was able to hook people and to actually triple, fourple, whatever their money, And we've seen something that we've never seen on Netflix, where they reached 142 million viewers. And it was a shocker that the second one is Shonda Rhimes' show, Bridgerton, was sitting on 88 million. But look at the gap. 144 million to 88 million. So you ask yourself, what did Squid Game get right? Right? A show that was apparently pitched 10 times and was rejected. Right? So it's creepy, but at the same time, it's motivation to say that you never give up on your idea, because someone else might say, but you know the story better, and you need to tell that story. You need insurance. We have so many issues and cases. I won't jump into these things because of time, but make sure that you have equipment, particularly for, you have insurance, particularly for equipment, and make sure you have that 10% on your production budget, because you don't want this thing as a production that you run out of money. So when you are going into your pitch, make sure that in your budget, it's one of the items that you have, just to show that you know your numbers, you know what you're doing, and you've got contingency in place. Because we've got shows that will shoot and not finish shooting, and like, what happened? Money happened. Your production team, definitely look at that. Don't try to be Tyler Perry. No one is entertaining Tyler Perry's, because it becomes a money-making scheme when you come and you say, no, I'm the producer, I'm the writer, I'm the director. Doesn't quite work, because if I were to ask who has watched The Oval, we have people who've watched Scandal, but who has watched The Oval? None of us. So it's those little things that will tell to say, know your market. It goes back to the research and everything else, but more so, money must never be your motivation when you are pitching. It's not a money motivation kind of industry, because you will suffer, man. You will suffer. I think let me stop it there for the sake of time. Just realizing that I had quite a lot to cover, but I am out of time. Let Wandile come. He was supposed to start. But we'll be around. Some of the things we can always pick up on them when we jump into questions. Okay. I don't know. I think I'll let him go first, and then we can have Q&A right at the end. Okay, thank you.
Kana vare Melusi is always who? Melus. And let's say Ausmili is always Agnes, okay? Yes.
Dumelang, Legai. Good guys. Mine colleagues is more of a take on developing stories from a producer standpoint. So I'm gonna hopefully not repeat too much of what Nonhlanhla has said. Ultimately, I'm really trying to get people to think of story from a financial standpoint. And I get nervous saying that because Thandeka Zwana is sitting here. So, that's, But just if we can go to the first slide. So, Nakalibitsoke Wandile Mulbatsi. I'm a producer at Coast of Pictures. We're a young production company. We've only been around about 13 years. We've gone through the trenches, as they say, and we're trying to build a platform that allows young black people to tell their stories. Can I go to the first slide? We're trying to open it up. Yeah, Coast of, that's what I need to remember. So our first film is a film called Hear Me Move. It was a Southern dance film. We're actually in the process of writing Here to Move with Helen and Thandeka, and hopefully they're going to pick it up. But we're really about global African excellence, and our focus is about telling the untold African story, which is why I feel this session is very important for us as South Africans. Next slide. These are just some of the productions that we've done. Hear Me Move, Tula's Vine, Guild. Ikani is quite an important project to me because it was the first isiNdebele TV show. And we spoke about language and the right for writers to write in the indigenous language in the earlier session. And I feel like that show crystallized in my mind why producers need to push for that to happen. Because that show did incredibly well on SABC1, and yet there was such resistance from the channel to put it on because they were like, no, but can we have a Zulu character? And we're like, nah, you can't. It must all be Isindebele, and actually the response from the market was incredible. So it just shows that if we can just stick to our guns as producers and as writers, we'll really succeed in this country. Next slide. So for me, as I was saying, I'm really trying to take the idea of developing a story idea for TV from a producer standpoint. And I am going to try and be honest and sometimes seem a bit ruthless, if I can say that, because I don't want to sugarcoat it, because we are all engaged in a very difficult journey, and it's one that we need to support each other on, but also be honest with each other that it's not going to be easy, and we're going to get a lot of no's, and you must just keep pushing through the no's. So for me, the idea is critical, because the idea is going to dictate your genre, it's going to dictate your budget, it's going to dictate your distribution platform. It needs to be informed by the target market, and most importantly, your idea is going to then influence who you can go to get money. So if you can just go to that slide. For me, once the idea comes, you might think that you've got a great idea, but it's just an idea. And you need to hear that loud and clear, that an idea is an idea is an idea is an idea. There's tons of people with ideas. The difference between us in this room and people that are having ideas is that we do something with our ideas. And we need to know that our ideas I'm sure this happens to London all the time. Kokas, people will be like, hey Joe, I've got an idea for a reality TV show. And I'm like, boy, tell me about it. He's like, no, there's this guy, and then he's dating girls, then he dumps her, then he gets another girl, then he dumps her. And that's his pitch. That's the idea that he's got. And I'm like, I hear you, fam. You need to expand on that, because once you get that moment, which is an incredible moment that creatives get, you see this thing, and you can feel it. Like, you understand where these characters go, you understand what drives them. You need to know that all of that is an emotional state, which is important for you to have, and then dilute it, if I can say that, into what genre is it? What's the budget going to be? What distribution platform can it live on? What's the target market, and who can I get to fund this thing? Because having an idea is just one thing. So let's go to the next slide. So this is where I'm going to try and not dwell too much on what's been said already, but I feel like an idea is not just an idea. And what I mean by that is that I feel like WGSA explained it well, that you can copyright your idea, but it can't just be like a sentence. There needs to be more to it, which means that you need to put in the work to expand the concept that you've got in your head. And the very fundamentals of an idea, has been touched on already, is that you must have a log line, which is incredibly difficult to write. And I need to stress that over and over again. It's very difficult to write a log line, because a log line, and I'll go into it in the next slide, the log line is what grabs the reader. They don't have time to listen to you tell them about this girl, Dipati, and then she breaks up with this guy, they want to hear the log line. It's one sentence. You've got 30 seconds to tell them why your story is great. Then you go into the premise. The premise is hopefully at the point at which you can get them engaged in the emotional journey that these people are going on, where they'll listen and talk to you about the characters and how they grow. And this for me is a very important thing that we touched on this morning. You must copyright your idea. And the reason why, there's an organization called Writers Guild of South Africa, and it's important that you copyright it, but we've spoken about it this morning. And because a lot of times people feel like you're trampling on their toes when actually they're not. I'll give an example. There's a series someone in the front is really excited about it called The Wife. Now that book was written by an incredible author called Ututubeseni Dube. Now she has written a catalog of 6 books. Now when she wrote her book, she actually got her books. She was sending the books out of a car boot, Nachereza, it was on WordPress forever, and she was just trying to get it out there, And people always forget how long it takes to get to that aha moment. And the idea of Hlomu as the matriarch of a home was bit by another production house, and they did another show. But at the end of the day, Hlomu as a story was just so strong that Dudu just kept writing and kept writing and kept writing. And what protected her was the fact that it was copywritten, it was published, it was on WordPress, and she could stand on her creativity and know that, no, this is a great idea and I need to pursue it. The next thing that, if we go back to I think slide 4, the power of an idea also tells you the target market, and it was touched on initially that, and I think it's something that sometimes we don't like to hear. You know, there's cinema nouveau type movies, like very art house type movies. Then there's Marvel, and then there's like Nollywood and there's Bollywood. All of those markets are markets. So you must know that when you have an idea, you're going to be catering to someone. And it's very difficult because just like you, Swag, I've been asked to, can you do this character in isiZulu? I get told that all the time because ultimately, Helen and Tandega, you know, they're trying to sell a product and they know that they're most Zulu-speaking people in the world, or in South Africa, let me just say. And that's unfair. And I'm not trying to protect them or say anything else other than the fact that film is a market-driven product. And so it needs to be supplying a product and a service to a market that exists. Now, what's exciting about the rise of the digital age is that the markets are becoming a lot wider and a lot more easier to access. So you can get Tswana filmmakers, you can get Chivenda playwrights, you can get Ndebele painters, and we can all celebrate, all of us, instead of being stuck just celebrating isiZulu. But ultimately, when you get an idea, you must know that it must serve a market. And I need to stress this because and it's a journey that I'm still on as a producer. You know, I love meeting writers and I love meeting producers and talking about stories. And the one thing that I always ask myself is that, where am I going to sell this? You know, it's a great story about this girl who discovers a diamond kopefeni. Does anyone care? And it's a tough thing to ask yourself, but it's an important one to ask yourself. Because if you don't understand if anyone cares about it, you can't sell it. And I feel like the idea and developing an idea for TV, a massive, massive part of that is knowing that there's going to be a market that's going to want it. And then lastly, the power of the idea can tell you who your financiers are. For example, I'm working on a project at the moment called Mapongopwe. Now it is without a doubt my most arrogant, not arrogant, that's the wrong word, my most ambitious producing work as a young producer. And I've realized that I can't raise 15.5 million rand to make the pilot. And so what I've done is that I've then spoken to an amazing director called Mandla Dube. And Mandla Dube, I worked with him as an actor in a film called Kalushi. And I've worked with him again now on Silverton Siege. And myself and Mandla have got a love for African history. And because I know that Mandla loves African history, I pitched Mapungubwe to him. And now he's like, okay, you know what, Wandi, we can go find money for this. Now, from that idea, I knew that I've got an idea, but with an idea by itself, it's not good enough. And I had to go and find investors who would then partner with me to make the idea come to life. So when you're developing an idea for a TV or for a film, you need to know that there's going to be places you can sell it, which is very closely linked to the idea of the market. Next slide. Oh, so what I'm going to try to do, you know, I was speaking to Agutkia, and the idea, what I'm going to try to do with my talk is attempt to be helpful, you know, because I've made a lot of mistakes and I've lost a lot of money and I'm going to lose more money, I suspect, going forward. And what is important to me is that, no, the slide, the red one that says log line. So what I'm going to try to do is that I did a show called Axis Paza for SABC2. So what I was just saying to Agutkia is that I want to take some of the things that we talk about, like the terms we talk about in the industry, and try and show the real life application of that. So if you go to the slide that says log line, a log line is a 1 to 2 sentence summary of your screenplay that conveys the premise but also adds an emotional aspect that hooks the reader. It includes the main character, setup, the central conflict in a concise and enticing way. Now, that sounds like an easy thing to do, but it's acutely difficult, because whenever you think of your story, you think that your story is deep and it's layered and it's amazing and it's going to wow people. But the truth is that you need to convey all of that amazingness, if I can say that, in 2 sentences. And what I learned from my business partner, Fidel Namisi, is that if you don't spend time writing the log line, you can lose a sale, you know, because you pitch it wrong. And the thing is that there's a photo on the slide. Oh, should I go there? There's a photo on the, sorry. there's a photo on the slide that says, this kind of like a picture of a guy trying to think, you know? And it just sort of captures the idea of how difficult a log line is to write. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much. Kaleboga, thank you. So the reason why I love this picture, you know, we actually have it, we have it on the office, up in the office, because the first, if you look at the first square, it's just a guy with a question mark. So that's the moment where you start to think that, is there a market here that would like this, right? Then after that, your mind starts turning, and then you get the light bulb moment, which is the log line. So I'm going to just read you a log line for a film that I think you'll all recognize very quickly. Two star-crossed lovers fall in love aboard the RMS Titanic and struggle to keep their relationship afloat as it's doomed to sink into the Atlantic. Now, just right there, just from hearing that, you know it's the Titanic, right? Obviously, the one's a bit lazy because we say the word Titanic, but you understand that it's, who are we talking about? It's two star-crossed lovers, and they're on a boat, and it's about to sink. And what does that mean for a film? Like, you're already intrigued to find out what happens next. Just gonna move down. So let me just read that. Can we get the? Let me read the Axis Paza log line. I don't know if it's gonna come on there. Okay, let me just read again. A log line is a 1 to 2 sentence summary of your screenplay that conveys the premise but also adds an emotional hook that captures your reader. And then the show that we did called Axis Paza, the log line was, a rule-abiding, set-in-his-ways businessman's orderly life is turned upside down when he is forced to run a supermarket with a dysfunctional family. So immediately you understand, okay, we're in a supermarket, there's a guy who's a bit too strict, and he has to run a supermarket with a family. I really wish you guys could see this. Are we not able to? It's like, you refresh. Okay. Actually, we can maybe go back. Let me just carry on, and then we can go back to it. So then I've got a slide that just explains what a premise is. The definition of a premise is a protagonist hero who is interrupted, disrupted, or a specific problem that needs to be solved, launching into a quest or a mission with a desired outcome, inciting a response, inciting action, inciting reasons and stakes. In the face of opposition, the protagonist must always overcome, calling for the higher action and higher calling, leading toward a brilliant and courageous resolution, reshuffling their lives and making their actions mean something, setting up a specific outcome. Now, that's what a premise is defined as, which is quite verbose and a lot, which is probably why they allow for more words to exist in a premise. Now, the premise for Axis Paza was, when his mother passes away, Tsiamo Tsalani, a struggling businessman, is left running his township supermarket / Paza. What he doesn't appreciate is his estranged father suddenly returns after 20 years from the funeral. Tsiamo wants to do nothing with his father until it is revealed that Brabantul actually is a 50% shareholder in the Spaza shop. In setting up to help him to run the business, now he has to deal with his father, who is a complete drunken and complete love-lost Harris. So now, basically, that gives a sense of the world and the bigger implications of the comedic trap that we're trying to create. All right, target market. As I said, I'm looking at this from a producer standpoint, and I think Nontlanta Luke said it from a different standpoint, and a very similar standpoint actually, because ultimately we're all trying to serve an audience, and if you're not serving an audience, there's no point in making the show. And so for me, it's very important to be honest on who the show is for, and it speaks to us wanting to be authentic. And I know that Squid Game is the example that we use so often because it's true. Because those producers and that director decided, you know what, we're going to make this film in Korean. and we don't care what the network says. We're going to stick to our guns and we're going to do it, which is probably why it got rejected 10 times. But ultimately, when they let them do it, it blew up the world. The other thing is that never allow your idea to be gray. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of TV in the world. And I think the first time I realized that was I was having a coffee with a lady called Helen Kuhn, and I was trying to give her like an elevator pitch. Basically, I was trying to wow her with my idea. So I was like, yeah, I want to make this movie called Hear Me Move, and it's going to be a dance film, and they're going to be doing pantsola, and then they're going to music, and she looked at me like, okay, who's going to watch it? That's it. Who's going to watch it? And the fact that I hadn't thought of that answer broke my heart, because for me, I knew the answer, but I hadn't thought about it, and I had not articulated it in my mind, so that if anyone asked me, I would just say it's for 18 to 25 black peri-urban in South Africa. And actually, it turns out it's the whole continent. But I should have had that answer. And what that said to me is that I haven't thought about my idea enough. I'm not crystal in my idea enough. The other thing about not being gray is that there are going to be people that love your idea. There are going to be people that hate your idea. And to be very honest, you want that. You don't want people to be like, yeah, it's okay. That's the worst answer you can get. You want people either to be like, you know what, Muvango is shit, or Muvango is the shit. You know what I mean? You want the two responses, because if people are like, we don't know, we watched last week, we didn't watch this week, then you've lost, it means that you're not catering to anyone. And it's very important that your TV concept caters to someone, because it's something that maybe I'll go back to the other slide if we've got time, is that the idea for a TV property and a film is very different. And if I can just touch on that briefly, a film must have a start, middle, and end. And obviously, now with people being able to explore and experiment, they change it. Like, Tarantino will put the end at the beginning, or he'll put the middle at the front, or, there's all kind of little tricks that filmmakers can do. Like Christopher Nolan is one who's very good at that. The filmmaker that did Inception, and he did this new film called The Tenant. And so you can do things like play around with it, but ultimately the nature of a film is that it must be self-contained. So what that means is that when Tsepo goes to buy his ticket, he wants to sit there, watch something, either laugh, cry, be angry, swear, throw popcorn at the screen, and then leave. Whereas a TV show needs to be something that can live for a long period of time. And this is one of the things that I find is quite a bit of a disservice to South African writers specifically, is that writers are often having to write telenovela, which is 260 episodes, or Ohlomu, which is going to be 180 episodes. But the reality is that the nature of writing film has almost been discarded, because telenovelas pay more money. And because there's so many telenovelas on our screens, as Abuti Bono was saying, more writers are writing telenovela other than anything else. And there's nothing wrong with that, actually, before I buy myself out of a job. There's nothing wrong with telenovela. I love telenovela. I love Koni and Shona. I love it. But, it's just, we need another space, Like Chedza and Gudin and Patu run a company called Chedza Productions. And I've engaged them about the film ideas that they have. They are incredible. They are absolutely incredible. And the challenge is that because we're running businesses, we have to do what makes money. But I'm getting on a tangent, sorry. So going back to Axis Paza. Axis Paza was for young families. And the reason why it came about, which is something that I think is important when you're creating an idea, is that it was about my own life. I had just become a father. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to make money. I didn't know how I was going to survive. And then myself and Fidel just sat and we talked about it, and we developed it into a show. And the thing that's important about that is that there are a lot of Wandilas in the world, or I want to believe that there are Wandilas in the world. Young black men, they want to be good fathers. They don't know what to do. Maybe their father was not present. Their father figure was an uncle, or maybe Kerangwane or Ntatemogolo somewhere. But ultimately, I looked at TV and I was like, why are we not seeing any of these kind of men? Men that are scared to become fathers, men that are aware that there's a responsibility to be a father, that are also open to making mistakes. And then obviously that led me to SABC2, because SABC2's whole thing is feel at home. And so the idea actually spawned the investor. And I feel like that's always an important thing to do, that you have the light bulb moment. You're like, I'm going to tell a story about young men that want to be fathers. But you must know that it must sit somewhere. It just can't be an idea that you have in a vacuum. So on this slide, I don't know if we can get to it, I just sort of touched on genre. And it was touched on already, so I'll just go through this quite quickly. But it's genre is, if I can actually, now that if we're back, I just want to do this. Sorry guys, I know I'm taking time. So, are we back on? No? Ish, I did it too. No, I'm not winning. Okay, it's critical. So we're still at genre. Then I want to go back to slide 5, but it's all good. Genre is critical, of course, because from a producer standpoint, I always want to make rom-coms. Rom-coms are the best because it's two people talking on the street, they fall in love, the credits roll, and then women love it. They tweet about it, they go and watch it like 2-3 times, we make a lot of money. But the point is, the world can't just be shoved with rom-coms because we'll just die. What's very interesting that is in South Africa, comedy is probably one of the most popular genres, probably because our lived experience is so difficult. We go through so much every day as South Africans that when we go and we watch something, we want to have a moment just to relax. The other one, which comes in a very high second, is drama, because I guess our lives are so dramatic. And the thing about an idea is that it's critical that you decide on this very, very early in development, because the genre is going to dictate to you what you can and can't do. So what do I mean by that? If you are doing a telenovela, you can't have everything happen in the first 10 episodes, for example, because then you don't have any more of a show. Or if you're doing an action movie and there's no explosions and there's no sexy girl with a push-up bra and a guy with a six-pack and muscles, then you're not doing an action movie. There are just certain things that you have to commit to. There are certain tropes that have to exist when you're doing a genre film, which is great, I think, as a producer, because the audience always knows what they're getting. So if they're going to go watch an action movie, they know how Bruce Willis is going to shoot somebody. Hey, don't talk to me like that. Bam, bam, bam. They expect that. That's what they want to see. If they're going to do a drama, they want to see someone crying. And those tropes are important. So you can't come and try and get someone to produce your drama, and yet everyone is laughing all the way through a script. It just doesn't make sense. Or you can't go and make a sitcom and everyone's crying all the way through. And there's other issues that affect the genre, but we will get into that another time. The other thing that I feel like is very important when you're developing a TV concept is the distributor and the platforms. And what's been great actually over the last 2 years is that the platforms are just exploding. You know, we have got Disney Plus, we've got HBO Max, we've got Prime Stars, we've got Hulu, we've got Mzansi Magic, we've got SABC 1, 2, and 3, we've got ETV, we've got eVod, we've got eAction, eFamily, eAnimation. And what that does is that it allows us as creators to find the platforms where we can have 100% Setswana comedy. We can find the platform that can have 100% Setswana romantic comedy, because the platforms exist. Where it's difficult is that you need to go and make Google your friend. And what I mean by that is that you must go and not use data, Googling funny things. You need to go and look for funders and look for the people that are the acquisition agents. You need to find out where Tandega lives and say, no, where she lives, but find out what Tandega's email address is, you know, so you can send her ideas and call her and follow up. Don't waste your data downloading the latest Amapiano track. Or no, you can do that as well, but you must save some data to do something constructive. And it's incredible, this thing called Google, how powerful it is, how much access to information we have. One of the quotes that my father used to say to me every day is that white people put things in books because then they know we won't find it. And it used to make me so upset when I was younger, because I'd get all like, no, but Papa, you can't say that. And he's like, okay, sharp. And it was just, I didn't understand, maybe I was young. What he was trying to say was that black people don't read. And Google is a platform that has got incredible amounts of information, and we miss it all the time. So the idea of the platform informing your idea is that you need to know that people like Disney Plus don't want a film that's only going to work in South Africa. People like Indigenous want something that's going to work on theatrical, that's going to work on Netflix. They want things that are going to travel. Someone like SABC2, however, as was the case with Axis Plaza, we're happy for it to be very localized and to be very much a South African story, because the mandate of that platform is to service an audience, which is very local and localized. Then I speak very briefly about the Writers Guild. And actually, I think this has been said quite a few times. And I think the one thing that I would like to share or just discuss is the fact that I said it earlier. Your idea is not as original as you think it is. And as difficult as that sounds to hear, it's the truth. You know, unless you're doing something that's completely out of this world, there's someone out there who's thought of that thing. For example, everyone thinks that Game of Thrones is so amazing, but all they did is that they took a show called Vikings and they put dragons in it. You know, everyone thinks that, oh, Suits is so amazing, but there was another show called The Office that also kind of had the whole thing of the Suits, or Law and Order. So basically, the notion of an idea being completely original doesn't exist. What is original is how you treat that idea. And this is what is so important about creating copyright protection in your IP and in your ideas. I really wish you guys could see this. Marre, we will move forward. So obviously, with Axis Plaza, I'm going to just read the dramatic question in Axis Plaza. And these are all things that you must have before you can say that you've got an idea. Because it's one thing to say that you've got an idea, but it's one thing to flesh it out. So in Axis Plaza, the dramatic question was, can a father and son fix their broken relationship and successfully run a Plaza shop together? So what that does, that it asks a question, and it says, during the duration of the show, we're going to be answering that question every single episode. We're going to be asking, can Siamo be friends with Kopano? Can these two men actually reconcile the relationship and run this Plaza shop together? And then you have something called a controlling idea. And the controlling idea is very important for any pitching session, which is, in the case of Axis Plaza, it was, having kids doesn't make you a father, raising them does. You know, and that really, if I must be honest, we had worked for months on the pitch to SABC2, you know. We had like all the PowerPoint, it was, you know, animation, it was very pretty, and I could see Jackie Hlongwane is the head of SABC2. And when I said the controlling idea, the penny dropped. Because she realized that, okay, that's what the show is about. That's what the idea is about. That having kids doesn't make you a father, but raising them does. And she was like, I see the time slot. I see the brands we can get. We're going to commission this show. So thank you, guys. I am going to actually email this to Kia, because I would love for you guys to have it. But thank you so much. I'm happy to take questions. Let's go make some movies, man.
Thank you, Wandile. I would like to steal some moments from you a bit. Wandile, can I have you close to me, please? You remember Andile was Duma, on which?
Oh no, don't talk about guessing.
On which? Oh, he already answered. Okay, but who knows Samuel Sidibe? Samuel Sidibe. Sam Sidibe from Rhythm City. Wow, you just find out now. Okay.
Can we have our Nontantla to come back so that we can have questions and answers?
Do we have any question? Kagoba, when someone is asking the question, please keep your hands up so I can see.
Dumelang bagaetsho. Ki dumela gore ki bua le di experienced people. Now I'm going to be directing these questions to both of you. Starting from the commissioning point of view, Akere Mamawaro, or commissioning editor for the SADC and for Mnet. Now, I'm going to give you an example. We are submitting proposals through your portal, okay? And they get rejected. I still remember I submitted, I think it's 10, 12, 15 proposals that were rejected instantly. Katsatsile 1. You understand? And I fail to understand why. But now, recently, Kibone filimi engwe ba ibitsa Magadi. After I submitted a film called Magadi in, I think it's 2020. And then I was told that it has failed QC. But Sekisiboni not recently, I think it was last week. Hanga go bolela kere Sekisiboni, it did not even meet my film. For the first, Sanka. The world of the story was not clear. The inciting incident was not clear. Performance and, maybe kakere, the challenges within the story. How lebeletse as a writer, you cannot see where the MTP is. You cannot even see the first, second, and third act climax. You cannot see that. But it and the culture or the tradition, culture and tradition research is not thoroughly done because culture totally and absolutely. So I fail to understand why did it have to pass quality control whenever others that has been researched, done as per the writing, requirements and production shooting is done, then it failed, quality control by a rejecter. And every submitted a film called Magadi, but when you look into the content, it has got nothing to do with Magadi. Now it raises a question from Wandile's side, the log line need to reveal those 5 things. Since setting, the performance or storyline is in very clear. There was nothing. I wonder what the tagline was on that film. Now, the other thing, there is a tendency of the commissioning editors to actually recommend a certain production house. Why is that? Where is the developmental space and the transfer of skills or empowerment of other emerging talented artists or companies like Clive Morris Production does? They did mentor 2 companies that I know, but most of this, what I see now, there are only 4 or 5 companies that are recommended by your institution to shoot series, not feature films. Ne? The shooter the series fella, the telenovela and stuff like that. Why ilibona fela? How do they empower other emerging companies? We are losing people. How do they substitute or badira yang gore ba transfer skill it to other people in case they lose those people? I fail to understand. I know it's a private company, it needs to make money, but what is their ethic rules? What is their value? I mean the mission, vision and value of those, if I may ask. And ke botsa wena emotionally so kgaitsedi because you are a commissioning editor, you are the person recommending that content or that production to be, to be given a space. I'm sorry to say that other people did that. Maybe I'm not pointing out at you, but I'm asking you because well, I'm born. Right. There are two companies that did false films. Okay. So let me cut my story short. Let me be a little bit subtle. Ke ne ke kopa yana hore go nne le this thing e le etsang ge le sitile ra le bo your colleagues. Re feng chance re di company we are registered, we are capable of producing. Ske nne le tsa bo Ferguson se bo Cheza bo Black Brain le bo I don't know who. Seriti Films. Re na le bokgoni kgaitsedi aka. Don't look down upon us. We can make wonders in Northwest, and not only Northwest. An example, the Deep City. I'm very rata ho feta because ina le mashangane, ina le mapedi, ina le ditsotsi, ina le everybody. But now, how lebella tse dingwe ebe di na le sezulu fela ebe na 0.2% ya Setswana. Le sone e seng se very clear sa go strateng. So please try and convince those people to refrain from that because we don't like that. We know they are trying to make money, but they do, the way they do, they actually are not enriching South Africa. They are enriching their friends. I'm sorry to say that. Or maybe should I go to the CEO and convince him that otherwise, then he can talk to his people. I'm very much old to be saying this. Because so one day it comes to you now. Okay, let me cut my long story short.
No, I'm politicking. We were told today got this black tie. Where would we have gotten black tie?
No, the black tie is for the people that are receiving their awards.
Aha, not the audience, ne?
We can just rock up
And be there.
whatever we want to wear.
Okay.
Only the ones that are nominated.
Thank you for that clarity, Millicent Sham. So, Abuti, Wandile touched on this thing just before he finished his presentation, that many a times when you've got an idea, you find that there's someone else who's thinking of the same thing, right? So you might find that may have been the case with your story. You'd find that someone else is thinking of the same idea, somewhere the execution will just be something else because it was a completely different. And we've had so many cases. I mean, I think Somizi's show was attacked. Pearl's show was attacked. Yobe, she's here. So yeah, it's a very, very tough one. I can't get into those things. Like it's really because of time. Maybe we can take it offline. of this. You did. Yeah, so what I'm asking that so what steps did you take so far to try and but that's how
The and yeah, like the challenge is that so I
From Writers Guild. Guys, what he's saying is true. It happens. One delay said it. And it's very painful. That is why he's emotional. We need her. We need to. Please join. Because what she was speaking about is very
so so the this so I want to give a very real example that also hurt me very dearly. I had a concept about the African royal houses, you know. So I wanted to do the Kush Empire, the Kemet Empire, and I wanted to do a series about the empires of Africa. And then Layla Yellowbone and a guy called Jamil Kubega, they are now doing a show with Canal Plus and Mnet called Blood Psalms. Now, when I saw what the log line was for Blood Psalms, my heart sank because I thought, these guys have stolen my thing. Then I saw who the producer was, and it was Leila Swart. Leila Swart Najar. She's not Asil Khoa, she's colored. And I realized that actually, you know what, Mulibat, you had this idea. I mean, me and Fidel, we wrote this whole thing. We had a pilot, and I think we had a pilot and a series overview. We had spent money on researchers to investigate the Kush Empire of Ethiopia. My point is that it does happen where ideas germinate in the universe, and a lot of people have them at the same time. But what shook me was the fact that this person was, I know Layla. She didn't steal my idea. But also to your point, I want to also give a bit of, not hope, because I don't want to sound condescending, a sense of real action. There's a PwC anonymous complaint line that the IPO is dealing with every day, and it's not like one or two complaints, guys. We get, I think the last exco that I sat on, we got 17 complaints. 17 complaints about people saying that Mzansi Magic had 15, ETV had 1, and Mnet 101 had 1. You know, people, this happens. Now, the challenge is that, as you're saying, that it's very difficult because now those people they've got advocates, they've got lawyers, they've got attorneys, and they have to fight those people. But there are structures that are in place for us to take that fight up, because it's not good enough for us just to walk away. But there are things we can do. We can go to the Writers Guild of South Africa. We can go to this anonymous hotline. Uyolisa. Yolisa is the CEO of Mnet. And an amazing woman called Nomsa Piliso. Meole, she's gone to about 7 of these IPO broadcast meetings. Meole is approachable. When she hears that something's gone on, she goes, she asks Lufono, she asks these other CEs, Mzansi Magic. She actually engages with this thing and tries to solve it. And it's very painful. And I'm not talking about something that's not happened to me, it's happened to me. But I promise you, there is a way to fight it, and there is a way to get what you deserve. Especially if you can prove that actually, no, the throne, and they can't deny it. But I beg you, please use that PwC platform. It's anonymous, it's legit. They're a proper audit firm that deals with billions of rands of corruption. They deal with big issues, and they take this hotline very seriously. And Mnet does as well. Sorry, who can I
Unfortunately, we are out of time. Do you want to say something, Marisha? We are out of time. Okay. From what I hear, the awards would be at 8. Immediately after the screenings, we are doing the awards. I don't know how you are going to change and be here at 8. Immediately when we're done at 8, we are starting and no longer 8:30. So ladies and gentlemen, and also Ausnontantla, Tate Mlebatsi, thank you so much for helping us. I have never been at an event like this where people are real and honest about the things that are happening and finding a way of how to change them and making it a better industry for all of us, the upcoming and those that are not. I also believe as an upcoming, because I don't know much and I might think I know better and I don't, it is better to work with those that have been in the industry because they will help me and I will learn from that. And that is why I love it when people are like, I know I went to school, I studied, I have this, I have that, but they are willing to go and start as a trainee when they are shooting, whether the river, whether the what. Because you get so much exposure and experience from shows that are already on. Instead of saying, let me just do my own, sometimes you're doing it wrong. But learning and working with people that are there is also important. It's also important for us to work with each other because and create something with all of us together and create something and work and create our own industry, you know, because and they don't. While we are here, we should be doing something for ourselves, with ourselves, and one day we'll have our own bigger, better SABC or whatever it is that might come from Rustenburg. You never know. You know what I mean? Yes. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Let us go to venue 2. Okay, everyone, you've got forms, ne? With you that are written NDP. Please fill them. Those who have filled them, please put them here. I'll make sure I